After 5 years in development, the government is finally publishing its online safety bill. Now, this is Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries' first big piece of legislation. And she says it's going to put an end to online giants like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter being allowed to mark their own homework about harmful material on their services. But Labour say the bill is too little too late and has allowed Russian disinformation campaigns to flourish in a Wild West internet. And some campaigners have warned that the bill amounts to a censor's charter. It doesn't include enough protections for freedom of speech. So here's what you need to know. The top line of the bill is that Ofcom, who you may know as the broadcast TV regulator, they're going to be in charge of making sure internet companies comply with the new rules. And for companies that don't comply, there's a number of sanctions that they can apply. That could be a fine of up to 10% of global turnover, which for a company like Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, that's quite a lot of money. They also, if they don't comply with the new rules, they could find themselves blocked from connections in the UK, which is quite a serious thing. And the bill could also make senior managers of these firms personally criminally liable for certain offences, not just for not complying with the rules, but for destroying evidence or obstructing or willfully misleading Ofcom. So what are these new rules? First off is the obvious one. Companies are going to have to tackle illegal activity on their platform, and there'll be a legal requirement to report any activity of that kind to the National Crime Agency. Secondly, they'll have to put robust measures in place to protect children from harmful material, or specifically pornography. It's unclear exactly what form these robust measures are going to take. That hasn't been fleshed out yet. But you can expect big websites that host a lot of adult material to require some kind of age verification, whether that's a credit card or other third-party services. What it's not going to be, we're assured, is the idea that was mooted a few years ago, where you could go down to your newsagent and buy what they lovingly called a porn pass. That's not part of the plan. And this kind of leads to the contentious bit of the bill, which is the question of material that is legal but harmful. Companies are going to have to set out in their terms of service how they plan to deal with content that isn't actually illegal, but could cause harm to their users. And that list of material hasn't been set out yet. That'll come later in secondary legislation that'll have to be approved by MPs and peers. But that's likely to include things like self-harm images, content about eating disorders, depression and suicide. It's also been suggested racist abuse and disinformation could come under that banner of legal but harmful. And while all this might seem quite sensible on the face of it, and while it does have an explicit carve-out for journalism and for content made by news websites, and while there will be a legal right to appeal if your content has been removed under these rules, it's ringing some alarm bells with some campaigners who are worried that it could lead to, and I quote, an Orwellian censorship machine. The open rights group have warned that the bill will still require companies to remove content that, while unpleasant, is, let's face it, legal. And while Parliament will be asked for a rubber stamp on the list of harmful material, it will effectively be ministers who decide the long list of what they ask for. And the open rights group say this amounts to state-sanctioned censorship of legal content, and that list could be modified over the years in secondary legislation. It's not tied to this bill in itself. So what happens next? So next off, the bill will go into the interminable parliamentary system. It'll first get debated by the Commons, then it'll get debated by the Lords, and then back again, and it'll get debated, tweaked. Eventually, it will get voted on. The government is hoping to see that happen by the end of this year. But while there's a lot of MPs and peers who will relish the opportunity of sticking it to the big tech companies, there's also a lot of diehard free speech champions in the Commons and the Lords. And it may have taken 5 years to get this far, but it's not out the door yet.